Thank you, Job, and thank you to Steve for that warm welcome and for your longtime support of the project on national security reform. Without the support of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, we would not be here today. And without the sponsorship of the Center for the Study of the Presidency, we would not be here at all. So my thanks to CSIS and to the Center for the Study of the Presidency. As many of you know, yesterday we had 8 half-day seminars at 4 locations. And I had the opportunity to visit each one of those seminars. They were first-rate. I was impressed by the presentations, by the interventions, by the questions that were asked. And I was also impressed by the enthusiasm and excitement, the same enthusiasm that we're seeing here this morning. But I want to thank the Hudson Institute, the Hoover Institution, the National Defense University, and CSIS for hosting and making those events yesterday possible. Exactly 60 years ago, on this very day, President Harry Truman signed the National Security Act of 1947. The world has changed dramatically since then. But the United States government is still attempting to provide for the nation's security with a World War II inspired system. Not surprisingly, this outmoded system is not working. Indeed, it has not been adequate for our needs for many decades. The time has come for a fundamental review of our national security system and for the formulation of arrangements that are capable of handling 21st century security challenges. So we are here today for the public launching of the Project on National Security Reform, a broad coalition of experts and citizens from think tanks, universities, consulting firms, businesses, law firms, and from 9 government departments and agencies. And this coalition is determined to enable the necessary fixes. The conventional wisdom in Washington about the folly of undertaking interagency reform makes me think of a saying by Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis. He said, "Most of the things worth doing in the world have been declared impossible before they were done." And I appreciate Justice Brandeis' insights. As Joe Penny mentioned, I had the privilege of participating in a number of historic reforms that were widely dismissed as impossible before they became historic successes. Many of you know of my involvement in the Goldwater-Nichols Act, and there are lots of other colleagues from that particular effort who are joining us today. My involvement with special operations and low-intensity conflict and the reforms in the Department of Defense that produced the U.S. Special Operations Command and its great capabilities. And more recently, my challenges with defense reform in Bosnia and Herzegovina. My observation from these experiences is that the impossible can be done if it is truly worth doing. And there's a growing consensus that interagency reform is more than worthwhile. It is essential to our nation's safety and welfare. Why do I believe that we have an historic opportunity to make the necessary fixes? First of all, the magnitude of the setbacks that we have experienced in recent years is so great that it has created great urgency and a consensus to make needed fixes. If you look at the broad coalition that we have formed, more than 25 nonprofit organizations involved in our effort, 13 universities, 9 consulting firms, 3 law firms, and I could go on. We have built a very broad coalition. If you look at our guiding coalition, many of whom are here today, and you will see as part of our program later today, it has a very diverse background and a tremendous stature. And I think this is an indication of the urgency and consensus behind this need. The goal that the Project on National Security Reform has established is the approval of a new system, a new national security system, before, just before the inauguration of a new president, or more likely, just after the inauguration. And we believe that this goal is a realistic one. Let's talk for a moment about the evidence of the need for reform. We have seen that the current interagency system cannot handle complex, rapidly paced security challenges and other crises. Our departments and agencies are outmoded, vertical, stovepiped, bureaucratic, and competitive. We cannot create those horizontal teams working across the government and rapidly integrate our diverse expertise and capabilities. Policy formulation, planning, and execution have suffered because of this, sometimes catastrophically. Newt Gingrich, a member of our guiding coalition, has declared, "We have met the enemy, and it is our bureaucracy." And here Newt is talking about the organizational arrangements, not the dedicated professionals who are working in our national security organizations, about whom I'll have more to say in a moment. The recent compelling evidence, the terrorist attacks of September 11th, the failed stability operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, our inadequate response to Hurricane Katrina. These setbacks are not coincidental. They are evidence of a system failure. But the problems are long-standing and deeply rooted. They go back more than 40 and 50 years. They're not the problems of any one administration, any one political party, or set of leaders. They have defied solutions for decades. But these problems have been magnified by the increased complexity and rapidity of change. Before we go further, I want to turn and talk about the professionals in the National Security Organization. The professionals who man our departments and agencies focused on national security. They are highly skilled and working incredibly hard. They are working so hard to try to make a dysfunctional system work, but they cannot work any harder. Both our leaders and our national security professionals need a new system, one aligned with our challenges, in which their skillful work can have powerful results. We have 3 overarching problems. The first is we cannot rapidly and effectively integrate our diverse expertise and capabilities. We have horizontal challenges, and we have vertical organizations. The second major problem is that our civilian departments and agencies are under-resourced, tremendously under-resourced. But they are culturally and administratively unprepared for their national security roles. In part, we have the problem that we have a very outdated definition of national security. The third major problem is Congress. Congress is as stovepiped as the executive branch, and it reinforces divisions in the executive branch. It focuses on the parts, and it cannot do the whole of government consideration of national security missions. Let me talk for a moment about the Project on National Security Reform. As I mentioned before, we are sponsored by the Center for the Study of the Presidency, which is under the able leadership of Ambassador David Abshire. It's a non-partisan coalition that spans the entire political spectrum. We have a guiding coalition of 19 distinguished practitioners, many of them right here in front of me this morning and who will be participating in our program today. As many of you who participated yesterday are aware, we have 12 working groups with more than 190 participants. And I should say the number of participants is going to grow because as I went from seminar to seminar yesterday, people came up to me and volunteered and said, give me my mission. I would ask you to go to our website. We have a first-rate website, and there's a tremendous amount of information there. The literature reviews that we're doing, soon we'll have the case studies on our website as well. But it's at www.pnsr.org. In terms of our project components, first of all, we will be studying needed reforms. We don't have the answers. Matter of fact, at this point, we're not looking for the answers. We need to inform the Congress, who knows little about the interagency and about modern organization practice. We need to communicate with government, with Congress, media, and the public. We need to help in drafting laws, in drafting executive orders, and amendments to Senate and House rules. And we also plan to be involved in assisting in the approval process of our ideas and in doing implementation planning. We are determined to have the most detailed, rigorous, and objective study concentrating on problem identification. The heart of success in reform efforts is clearly understanding what the problems are. Most reform efforts do not do that, but we will discipline ourselves to clearly identifying what the problems are and what their causes are. We will spend a tremendous amount of time there, also getting beyond the issue of what the symptoms are, so that we can deal with the fundamental problems. We have 27 case studies underway, and we're looking for additional case study authors. These examine interagency operations from 1918 until today. There's much that we can learn from them. And only after we have done this fundamental work of understanding the problems and causes will we turn our attention to thinking about the full range of alternative solutions. We have 3 sets of reforms that we think are likely to be necessary. One is the new National Security Act. 2 are presidential directives to implement changes that do not require statutory prescription. And the third is amendments to Senate and House rules to provide sufficient support and oversight of interagency operations and activities. In conclusion, the nation urgently needs a new national security system. This is not just something that would be nice to have. It is imperative. Our performance will not improve without a new system, and our setbacks are likely to be more devastating. Reforming the national security system is an enormous challenge, and those of us who are involved in the project on national security reform do not underestimate the difficulty of the undertaking. Yet the leaders and participants in the project are dedicated to meeting this challenge and convinced that one way or another, the challenge will be met. We invite your support. Thank you very much.